Welcome back again to our ongoing series on the glories of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pacharane, Nivishesha Shunyavadi, Pastrata Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So today we are continuing with our series on Radha and Krishna's spring pastimes in Vrindavan. And I'd like to focus today on how the temples of Vrindavan celebrate Vasanta Panchami, the first day of spring. And more specifically, how they worship, or how the devotees in those temples worship their deities on that special day. We've been discussing how much Radha and Krishna love the spring season, as it naturally awakens their loving sentiments for each other. And because Radha and Krishna are ever present in their deity forms in Vrindavan, the Brajabasis go to great lengths to facilitate the divine couple's loving exchanges in their deity forms on the first day of spring. I'm often asked, what is the most important rule or regulation in deity worship? Is there a most important rule or regulation? I generally reply that you could say that the golden rule in deity worship is to always remember that the deity is a person. Not only a person, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And being fully conscious as a person, the deity can reciprocate with our service. Because there's that famous saying, love is reciprocal. Srila Prabhupada said in a lecture in Bombay, December 4th, 1974, that, quote, Krishna is ready to talk with you. He has come. He has descended in Archamurti to talk with you, to be visible by you. Now make yourself ready and fit to talk with Krishna. Then he will exchange conversation. Shanta Shadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti. This is possible, unquote. This is possible, Prabhupada said. Now, as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we recognize 7 principal temples in Vrindavan. Temples established by our previous acharyas. These acharyas, as we've been discussing through the months, they found and worshipped deities in Vrindavan that became their very life and soul. We hear of their devotion in that popular Bengali bhajan, Jaya Radha Krishna Giti. Jaya Radha Krishna Giti. Jaya Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda Radhe, Rupa Goswami Prandanahe. It means all glories to Radha and Govinda, the treasure of Rupa Goswami's heart. Or Jaya Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan Radhe, Sanater Prandanahe. All glories to Radha and Madan Mohan, the treasure of Sanatana Goswami's heart. Jaya Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radhe, Jiva Goswami, Prandanahe. All glories to Radha and Damodar, the treasure of Jiva Goswami's heart. Like that. It's a beautiful song. So on Vasanta Panchami, these and all the deities in Vrindavan, Prabhupada said there's 5,000 temples, and I think there's 10,000 now. All these deities are served in a variety of wonderful ways on the arrival of spring. In the famous Radharaman temple, very popular with ISKCON devotees, Radharaman wears, on this particular day, the first day of spring, he wears a greenish yellow colored dress, and from that first day of spring until the last day of Holi, everyone knows that Holi is the festival of colors, you throw the colors. From the first day of spring until the last day of Holi, which is a period of 14 days to be exact, the pujaris in the Radharaman temple, they offer Radharaman brightly colored powders, which they called gulal, after the Rajbhog Artik. Rajbhog Artik means the noon offering. How did they offer it? And they dab a little bit of color on his face, on his chin, or his hands. They don't just throw the colors. They dab these colors on the deity after the noon offering. And while they're making this noon offering, the pujaris, they also sing songs about Holi, accompanied by a dap vadan. What's a dap vadan? A dap is a tambourine without bells. Sometimes you see tambourines, they have bells, sometimes they don't. So dap vadan is a tambourine without bells. So while the deity is eating, they sing these songs and they play this tambourine, specific to the Radharaman temple. And during those 14 days, in the evenings, Radharaman sits on a golden throne. And his evening offering, the bhog, it's very special. They offer saffron-scented fudge, burfi, and the sweets in those clay pots. Many times we go to the temple at Radharaman, and the pujaris very kindly offer the pilgrims the little sweet pots. They're called kuliya. Kuliya. If you go next time, you can ask kuliya. They have a little pot of sweets. And then they also have a very special Utsava Artik. Utsava means festival, so during those 14 days, the Artik it's a special Artik, very festive Artik for Radharamanji. And on Vashanta Panchami, the whole temple of Radha Ballabha, we've spoken about Radha Ballabha a few times the last few months, very beautiful deity. I mentioned he has very dark eyes made out of jewels, and he's one of the best dressers in Vrindavan as far as I've seen. So the whole temple of Radha Ballabha on the first day of spring and continuously is decorated with yellow and orange marigold flowers. Yellow and orange marigold flowers. And as for Radha Ballabha himself, on that first day of spring, his pujaris remove his winter attire. Remember we talked about the winter attire, the Vrindavan deities. Specifically, they remove his gloves and all the warm blankets that we talked about a few weeks ago, along with many different ornaments. And also on that day, the Radha Ballabha devotees, they come to the temple dressed in a variety of bright colors, because spring is a time of colors. So we have the Holi festival. What are the colors? Nature comes alive. So many flowers come in the spring. So after being bathed in the morning, Radha Ballabha is placed on a lemon yellow colored swing called a dhol, D-O-L. And that swing is decorated with all kinds of different colored roses, and other type of flowers as well. And his, Radha Ballabha's noon offering consists of malpurs, keshar ladus, pulashai, and kachoris, and other savories as well. And all of which are colored yellow. I like that. All those sweets look yellow. And the savories, they all look yellow. And in the evening, the deities are they're singing songs to Radha Ballabha, describing that the festival of Holi, the festival of colors, is just around the corner. You know, when they throw the powdered dyes, they sing songs telling him, the festival of colors is just about to begin. Now in Radha Gopinath is the deity found by Madhu Pandit, actually, and in Vrindavan. In Radha Gopinath's temple, in Vrindavan and in Jaipur, because we know that Radha Gopinath were moved there hundreds of years ago when the temple, Vrindavan, was attacked by Aurangzeb. So in both the temple here in Vrindavan and in Jaipur, it's a tradition that on the day of Vashanta Panchami, the pujaris for Radha Gopinath, they play a big mridanga. Big mridanga. It's a unique thing that happens in that temple. It's actually more like a drum. I've seen it. It's ginormous here in Vrindavan. And they play that during the Raj Bhoga Arti, specifically to welcome the spring festival. Now in Madan Mohan temple in Karoli, Rajasthan, because we know the deity of Madan Mohan was taken from Vrindavan to Jaipur, and later Madan Mohan went to Karoli. There's a whole Leela that we told about that, but he's present in Karoli now. So in the Madan Mohan temple in Karoli, in Rajasthan, the king of Karoli himself comes to the temple in the morning on the first day of spring and begins the celebrations by first offering colored powdered dyes to the deities. Again, a little dab here, like that. And, oh yeah, Govindaji. On the first day of spring in Govindadev's temple in Jaipur, Govindaji. Although it's generally still a little cold, I mean, spring has sprung, but it's still a little cold, they do an abhishek. Abhishek means the deity comes out, and the Utsava deity comes out, and he's bathed. But because it's still a little cool, they bathe Govindaji, they do an abhishek with saffron milk. Saffron milk. Now that abhishek actually celebrates the appearance of Govindaji. For it was on the first day of spring that Rupa Goswami found Govindaji at Yogapith in Braj. Remember how he found him on that mound, that hill there, and found his top knot and brought him out with the villagers. That happened on the first day of spring. Then after doing this abhishek for Govindaji, the pujaris worship Saraswati in the temple as well, because Shastra says that Vasanta Panchami is her appearance day as well. Now afterwards, there's a grand procession from Govindadev's temple down to downtown Jaipur, close to the city palace. Many of you may have been there. You know, the city palace is actually downtown. So there's a big procession. They go and they have kirtan and, you know, and dance and, you know, in honor of this Govindaji's appearance on the first day of spring. It's a special day for them. And afterwards, Govindaji's servants, after the parade's over, they distribute sweets and ladus all over Jaipur. And it's all sponsored by the king of Jaipur. You can see the celebration here in Braj and in Jaipur and Karoli. And on Vasanta Panchami in the Radha Shama Sundar temple, it's one of the 7 main temples in Vrindavan, Radha Shama Sundar, they celebrate the day with a big festival in honor also of the appearance of a small deity of Shama Sundar. We have the big deities in temples, and we also have smaller deities, Utsava deities, who often receive the abhisheks and the particular worship, and sometimes they're put on palanquins and paraded around the temple, Utsava deities. So there's a small deity of Shama Sundar in that temple that stands next to the larger deity of Shama Sundar in the temple, Radha Shama Sundar. Now, this smaller deity of Shama Sundar, he appeared on Vasanta Panchami 400 years ago. 400 years ago. He's the first deity, even before the big deity of Shama Sundar. And it's a very beautiful pastime how he appeared in this world. He actually appeared to Srila Shyamananda Pandit. Shyamananda Pandit. We spoke about him months ago. Shyamananda Pandit of the famous trio, Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasacharya, makes your heart beat faster, and Shyamananda Pandit. They're my heroes. They were the original, you could say, second generation, in that after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nitai, Panchatattva. They wound up their pastimes on this planet and went back to the spiritual world. The next generation took up the preaching, the mantle of preaching. Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasacharya, and Shyamananda Pandit. Their exploits are famous amongst Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So Shyamananda Pandit, once when Shyamananda Pandit was in Braj, in the Tola, in the school of Srila Jiva Goswami, learning more about Krishna consciousness, Jiva Goswami opened a school, and some of the acharyas had passed away already. He opened up a school, and Narottam and Srinivas and Shyamananda, they studied in that school for a number of years before going out on a preaching mission. So once while Shyamananda Pandit was in Braj, doing Seva as well, one time he was sweeping the famous grove of Seva Kunj in Vrindavan. We mentioned the other day, Seva Kunj is where one of the Rasa Leelas take place. So he was doing that sweeping. And while he was sweeping there, Lalita Saki appeared to him, gave him darshan. And she said during that exchange that she would be very happy to give him darshan of Srimati Radharani. So he eagerly agreed. And she immediately transformed him into Braj Gopi. And together they entered uppercut pastimes. It means, here in Vrindavan, uppercut means the unmanifest pastimes. At any time here in Braj, the pastimes of Krishna and Radharani and their gopis and the cowherd boys and Nanda Baba and Mother Yashoda, they're still going on. We've discussed this. But they're not manifest to materialize, unmanifest pastimes. Lalita and Shyamananda, they entered into those uppercut pastimes. And actually we told this story in great detail last year, so we won't go into too much detail. It's quite an extensive pastime. But Lalita took Shyamananda Pandit to meet Srimati Radharani. Now after Shyamananda Pandit had darshan with Sri Radha, she requested him to return to Seva Kunj Grove on the mortal plane and to share his good fortune with others. However, the prospect of impending separation from Sri Radha caused Shyamananda, after that short darshan, to start crying uncontrollably. I have to leave you now and go back to the mortal plane. So with tears in his eyes, Shyamananda Pandit, he begged Sri Radha not to send him back to the material world and deprive him of service to her lotus feet. So it's written that Srimati Radharani's heart melted with pity, and to relieve Shyamananda Pandit's distress, and this is the most amazing thing, she manifested a beautiful deity of Shyamasundara, of Krishna, directly from her heart and gave it to Shyamananda. Srimati Radharani manifested a deity of Shyamasundar directly from her heart and gave it to Shyamananda. Then she said to him, "My dear Shyamananda, as long as you live in the mortal world, you should keep yourself engaged in the loving service and worship of this deity. In this way, you will not suffer due to separation from me. And after that, you'll come back to my eternal service in this eternal abode." Now, again, this all happened on Vashanta Panchami in the year 1578. So Shyamananda Pandit, he, with Lalita Saki's help, he woke up in the Seva Kunj. He was holding this deity of Shyamasundar. Can you imagine? And he began worshipping that deity from that day forward with so much love and devotion. Now as time went on, one day this deity of Shyamasundar appeared to Shyamananda Pandit in a dream. And the deity said, "My dear Shyamananda, my Radharani has appeared as a self-manifested deity in the treasury of the palace of the king of Bharatpur." Bharatpur is not far from Braj, it's a half-hour drive. My Radharani has appeared as a self-manifested deity in the treasury of the palace of the king of Bharatpur. You go there, you get her, and unite us in marriage. His deity appeared to him in a dream. Shyamasundar appeared into the dream of Shyamananda. Radharani's appeared. Go find her, and then have a marriage ceremony. So Shyamananda Pandit woke up the next morning, went to the palace of the king of Bharatpur, went to his treasury, and these kings in those days had huge treasuries, and in the treasury, standing atop all the valuable jewels and gold and silver, was the most valuable thing, the Archa Vigraha of Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani. So he retrieved that deity in the king's treasury. And then, after that, per the instruction of his deity in his dream, in the presence of a large group of dignitaries, he and they held a marriage ceremony of Srimati Radharani and Shyamasundar. And after that marriage, the king of Bharatpur, he built the present Radha Shyamasundar temple in Vrindavan. Now you know, when you come to Vrindavan, you know a little bit of the history behind that temple. Right downtown near Loy Bazaar is the Radha Shyamasundar temple. And you can go there. You can see the little deity there, and a little Radha. So the king, he built that present temple. Not only that, but he gave the village of Chatikar for the worship of Radha Shyamasundar, in the sense that there's some tax, the leaders, in those days the king, they would tax the village, and the village, that money would be used in the Seva of a deity. So the king gave the temple of Shyamasundar, Radha Shyamasundar, the village of Chatikar, for the worship of Radha Shyamasundar. This is the real history of the world. Other history we don't care about so much. Now also, each year on Vashanta Panchami, there's a celebration in the Radha Shyamasundar temple. They have a lot of celebrations on that day. In honor of the day, on Vashanta Panchami in 1798, that the great Baladev Bidubhushana, another one of our heroes, he installed the big deities of Radha Shyamasundar there. This is a little over, I think, over 300 years, well over 300 years. So he installed the big deities there. So Vashanta Panchami is a very auspicious and important day in the Radha Shyamasundar temple, where they celebrate these three glorious events in the history of their temple. Hare Krishna. So these are some of the ways in which the temples of Vrindavan celebrate Vashanta Panchami, the first day of spring in Vrindavan. Hare Krishna. What nectar. What wonderful things we find here in Sri Vrindavan Dham. So today we'll finish with a beautiful springtime verse from Sri Rupa Goswami's Vidagdha Madhava. Vidagdha Madhava 762. And I quote with great pleasure. O Krishna, who are the springtime that makes the Madhavi vine of Radha blossom with happiness. May those persons in whose heart devotion for you has already sprouted, and who open their ears to and worship drops of the pure and splendid nectarian ocean of your loving pastimes in Braj, attain that kingdom of transcendental sweetness and swim in its waves of pure love. Please allow me to recite that again. It's just so wonderful. Sri Rupa Goswami ki O Krishna, who are the springtime that makes the Madhvika vine of Radha blossom with happiness. May those persons in whose heart devotion for you has already sprouted, and who open their ears to and worship drops of the pure and splendid nectarian ocean of your loving pastimes in Braj, attain that kingdom of transcendental sweetness and swim in its waves of pure love. Hare Krishna. All glories to the springtime pastimes of Radha Krishna here in Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thank you, everybody. As we always say, we'll be back. I think we have 2 more classes, at least 2 more classes about springtime in Sri Vrindavan Dham. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Mayapur Dhama ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yagya ki, Gaur Premanandi, Jai Jai Sisi Radhe Sham. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back again to our ongoing series on the glories of our beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Namo Om Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pacharane, Nivishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we are continuing with our series on Radha and Krishna's spring pastimes in Sri Vrindavan Dham. And amongst the many pastimes in which Krishna enjoys in spring is the famous festival of Holi, the festival of colors. The Holi festival actually is so prominent in Vrindavan that the acharyas say that both Radha and Krishna have special names connected to Holi. For example, Shri Radha, she has these following names: Gandharvikashva Gandhava, Vishma Pita Bala Chuta, Shanka Chudari Daita Gopi, Chuda Gra Malika. Quote, she who is expert at singing, dancing, and playing musical instruments, who surprised Krishna and Balaram at the Holi festival, who is the beloved of Shankachuda's enemy, is the crowning garland of all the gopis. Jai Sri Radhe. And for Krishna, Ya Purvam Nir Mame Hori, Paravam Yakshasha Dhurivanam. Quote, he who celebrated the Holi festival and he who killed the Yaksha Shankachuda. So, there's so many pastimes in the spring. It's hard to know where to begin. In recounting Radha and Krishna's pastimes of Holi, especially. Some are known and some are lesser known. There's one pastime that I was reading the other night in Garga Samhita, Canto 4, Chapter 12. And therein it mentions 9 cowherd men. They're called the Upanandas. Their names are Vitihotra, Agnibuk, Shamba, Shikara, Gopati, Shruta, Brajesha, Pavana, and Shanta. And these Brajavasi men, they were all said to be well-off, good-looking, learned, noble, virtuous, charitable, and fathers to many children. And each of these Brajavasi Gopas, they each had a daughter. And one time, all of these Braja Gopis, all 9 of them, were sitting and talking together when they saw Krishna was preparing to leave his home to play holy. And they wanted to join in. So Garga Samhita describes that most of these girls had previously been demigoddesses in their previous lives, but they had performed austerities and many pious activities to become Braja Gopis. More specifically, they desired to be family members of Krishna, and even more specifically, friends of Sri Radha. So being partial to Srimati Radharani, they hurried to her home, hoping to take her with them. But when they arrived, they found Sri Radha was in Man, anger. Doesn't mention, but obviously something Krishna had done or said to her, she was pouting. She was angry. So hoping to dispel her anger, each of her friends appealed to her personally. One gopi said, "O moon-faced, honey-sweet Radha, listen. The ornament of Braj is leaving to celebrate Holi." I love that. The ornament of Braj is leaving to celebrate Holi. The distress you feel now will become but a grain of sand in the vast desert of misery. We will all be forced to aimlessly wander if we miss this chance to paint Braja and its prince with the colors of love. So beautiful. Then another gopi spoke up, and she said, "Devi, Radha, you should have seen Krishna's eyes rolling under the intoxicating influence of youth. His black locks resting on his cheeks and his yellow shawl draped over his shoulders is most wonderful." And another gopi excitedly added, "Sri Radha, as he walked, the anklets on his feet and the bangles on his wrists tinkled like cooing doves. His earrings illuminated his cheeks, and his crown glistened just like the rising sun." So then Garga Samhita goes on to say that a third gopi whispered to Sri Radha, "Sri Radha, while walking along the road, body smeared with kumkuma, syringe in hand, friends surrounding him, handsome Krishna repeatedly looked about to see if you were coming." So they're trying to appease Radha, who's in Man. Give up your Man and let's go have Holi. Then pulling her hands, and it's described pushing her shoulders, the girls cheered Radha on. They all said together, "Our dear Queen, Queen of Vrindavan, please give up your anger. Celebrate Holi. Look, your maids are already bringing water mixed with dye, paste, and flower pollen." So finally, Sri Radha relented, and it's described leaping to her feet. She quickly dressed for the occasion, and she went with her friends to celebrate spring, to the festival of colors. And for the celebration, these Braja Gopis, it's described they wore colorful dresses, flashing ornaments, and they carried jewel syringes. Syringes, like the colored dye comes out. And their servants followed them with pots of water mixed with aguru, musk, turmeric, and kumkuma. Oh yeah, and the essence of sandalwood. Now, Garga Samhita describes that as these Braja Gopis walked through the village streets, they managed to restrain themselves, But once on the forest path outside the village, their hands already red with a dye, they started gossiping and laughing and singing songs about holy. You know, in the village they have to be careful. They can't give it away that they're going out to have holy with Sri Radha and with Krishna. So they're very reserved. But once they got out of the precincts of the village, they started talking and laughing like, you know, young girls do, and singing songs about holy. And then the Shastra describes as they proceeded, the word is used, merrymaking. Their merrymaking electrified everyone and everything. Electrified everyone and everything. Causing, how's it described? The creepers, trees, birds, and forest animals to dance and sing along with them. To dance and sing along with them. The gopis are coming past, and then all the creepers, the trees, the birds, forest animals, everyone's dancing and singing along with them. It's described turning all of Braja into a moving festival. A moving festival. Now Garga Samhita doesn't reveal exactly what song they were singing, what holy song they were singing, but in the great Vaishnava poet Govinda Das Thakur's Padavali, one of his books, Padavali, he's a famous Vaishnava poet, Govinda Das Thakur. In his Padavali, we find the following song in Vashanta Raga. Raga means a particular type of musical composition. This is the raga for spring. This Padavali, this song is sung in Vashanta Raga. This song is number 87 in Padavali. And it begins with the refrain, Ritu Pati Biharati Nagara Sham, Radha Rangini Sangini Bham. With beautiful, playful Radha on his left, the dark hero Krishna enjoys pastimes in the springtime, the king of all seasons. And then the different parts of the song come. Their limbs are covered with sandal water, powder, and kumkuma. By gazing at Krishna, who is more enchanting than 1,000 Kamadevs, hundreds of young gopis are overcome with loving desire, inspiring them to sing graceful songs in the holy festival. So the poet goes on. For a change of dress after playing, some gopis bring fresh clothes, others bring flower necklaces, and yet still others bring rings. For musical accompaniment, some gopis bring flutes, and whether from near or afar, they all sing songs of holy while brimming over with bliss. What a poet, while brimming over with bliss. Then he concludes his song, our poet. He writes, as the unlimitedly talented gopis play graceful rhythms, Govinda Dasa's master, the crown jewel of all dancers, dances even as girls spray him with dye. Wow, such a wonderful description of holy. Very much different than the way people around the world play holy these days. Hare Krishna. So then, Garga Samhita describes that after singing songs about holy, the gopis became inspired. They became, we would say in modern terminology in ISKCON, fired up. And they began throwing fistfuls, big fistfuls, of red powder on each other, which it describes then rose up into the sky like a cloud, blanketing the earth, and as a result, the trees became crimson in color. And this cloud hovered over the horizon. The trees became crimson color, and that cloud just hovered over the horizon. And it describes that in time, that cloud became so thick that only a flurry of reddish fists could be seen throwing fragrant red powder in all directions. Just try to imagine in your mind's eye, they're throwing this dye. But it becomes so thick, this cloud, that if you looked at it closely, all you'd see was a flurry of reddish fists throwing this fragrant red powder in all directions. This is another difference between holy festivals now, not in our in ISKCON and other spiritual organizations, but people are having these festivals. But the one difference is that the powder that the gopis threw was fragrant. It was fragrant. So it hit you and you color, but you smell this beautiful fragrance. So this was being thrown in all directions, and as a result of this phantasmagoria, only the sounds of singing and music could be heard amidst joyful shouts. Only the sounds of singing and music. So many things are going on around perhaps, but all you can hear is singing and music amongst joyful shouts the gopis are throwing at each other. This is the real holy. So in this way it's described, the billowing cloud of red powder slowly moved through the forest. They're throwing at each other, just the gopis. It becomes a huge cloud, and it's described in Garga Samhita. It slowly moved through the forest until it reached Krishna. That was the plan. Until it reached Krishna, who what? The Shastra describes, he simply stared at this spectacle. Like, what? He's in the forest. Suddenly this red cloud of colored, fragrant powder comes. And then suddenly, without warning, the cloud of, it's described, the cloud of color attacked Krishna like a snake lunges at its prey. Wow. Comes the cloud into the kunja, and then all of a sudden that colorful cloud attacked Krishna like a snake lunges at its prey. And before he could run away, or even call his friends for help, the gopis surrounded him, restraining him with their hands. You can't move. How so? It said, like a monsoon cloud at sunset, surrounded by lightning bolts, Krishna was encompassed by gopis who relentlessly smeared his face and limbs with red powder while holding on to him and drenching his body with colored liquid. And drenching his body, those syringes, colored liquid, all the colors of the rainbow. So it all happened so fast, Garga Samhita describes. So finally, Krishna called out to his friends. But the cloud of powder was so dense, and the gopis so, vigilant in guarding him, that he couldn't escape, nor could his boys rescue him. He couldn't escape, but neither could the boys come and rescue him. So, with no other resort, it's described, no other resort than his mystic power, Krishna expanded himself into as many forms as there were gopis. And he attacked each girl with balls of this colored dye, this powder, and separate syringes full of liquid. He expanded, as he does, to be with each gopi, and then throwing the colors at them, and then he had his syringe. So, to make the most of the occasion, Krishna then pulled Shri Radha to the center of the, the skirmish, and covered head to toe in brightly colored powder. The two of them celebrated spring by dancing with each other. He pulled Shri Radha into the center of the skirmish, and both of them were covered head to toe with brightly colored powder. And how did they celebrate spring? They started to dance with each other, all covered with these beautiful powdered dyes. Holy. This is the origin of holy. Now, the Shastra describes that the cowherd boys, they were bewildered without their leader and confused what to do. And seeing this, the gopis pelted them with powder and liquid, completely embarrassing the boys because they were unprepared, and causing them to run away. So one Acharya poses the question here, exactly how long did this transcendental mili last, this whole spectacle? How long did it last? But then they answer this Acharya answers the question. He says, it's difficult to say how long this transcendental phenomena lasted. He says, for time has no influence on Krishna's pastimes. And even if it did, it would not be able to penetrate the billowing clouds of red powder. Wow. Time has no influence on Krishna's pastimes. And in this case, even if it did, it would not be able to penetrate the billowing clouds of red powder. Transcendental pastime. Nevertheless, Shastra describes, like all good things, the holy festival came to an end, after all. And finally, the Gopas and the Gopis, they all headed to different parts of the Jamuna River, to bathe. And while doing so, the colored dyes came off, and it's described so beautifully, how they were swirling in the Jamuna, like rainbow colors, swirling in the Jamuna as she proceeded on. All these assorted colors came off their bodies and mixed with the flowing of the Jamuna, creating a very beautiful scene. And then these Gopas and Gopis in different parts of the river, they changed into fresh clothes, and it says, quote, and fully anointed with the sweetness of loving exchanges. And fully anointed with the sweetness of loving exchanges. Radha and her friends then returned to their homes, and Krishna and his friends to theirs. All of them were anointed with the sweetness of loving exchanges. And as they walked along the road, the boys and the girls, they sang holy songs. However, when they reached the outskirts of their various villages, they stopped singing out of fear that the elders would disapprove. What is this? Where have you been? What have you covered like that? What happened? So as not to attract too much attention, they stopped singing the holy songs. Hare Krishna. Oh, the springtime pastimes of Vrindavan are so sweet and colorful. So, let us finish today with another of the poet Govinda Das's poems from his Padavali, Govinda Das Thakur. This time it's song 88. Previously we recited song 87. This is 88. Very beautiful. We can finish today like this. He writes, he who is like a moon shining in Braja's forest and who is filled with Cupid's desires enjoys pastimes of throwing red powder. At the center of a circle of beautiful gopis flows a blissful, reddish, wave-filled river of spiritual love. She who is the great heroine of amorous pastimes showers red powder on him, and he who is the king of amorous pastimes kisses her face. Her moon-faced gopi friends are filled with wonder. Gathering together, they come to rescue her, and then they attack Krishna. Trembling from the excitement induced by Cupid, the fearless gopis run to Krishna, snatch his flute, and flee into the cloud of powder. The din of the kartals, balai, balai, is overwhelming. Mixed with that sound are the gopis' cries of ho, ho, holy, ho, ho, holy. In the land, the air, or in the water, whether moving, unmoving, or otherwise, everything is one color, red. Seems to be the prominent color in the holy festival. So concluding his song, our dear poet, he writes, the water is red, the lotuses are red, and even Govinda Das's heart is covered now in red, which we know is the color of love in our Goswami literature. Whew. Thank you so much, Prabhus. There's more springtime pastimes, which we will discover in our readings, and we'll be back in a couple of days to share more nectar with you. Springtime in Vrindavan ki. Shishi Gauranitai ki, Shishi Krishna Balaram ki, Shishi Radha Shamasundar ki, Vrindavan Eshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Shishi Gauranitai ki, Shri Maya Pradama ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yagya ki, Shri Prabhupada, the revealer of the Dham ki, Gaura Premanandi, Jai Jai Sisi Radhe Sham. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Krishna, everyone. Welcome back again to our ongoing series on the glories of our beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nivisheshu Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we are continuing with our series on springtime in Vrindavan. In our last lecture, we told a pastime of Holi, the festival of colors, and mentioned that it is one of the main pastimes that take place in Vrindavan's spring. In fact, it doesn't happen at any other time of the year. However, there are numerous celebrations of Holi during Vrindavan spring in different parts of Braja, and involving different groups and different personalities, which we'll discuss today. And like all pastimes in Vrindavan, the performance of Holi is an eternal pastime, yet it has its origins as well. It has its first time. Surprisingly, during the pastimes of Lord Nrsingadev. It's really interesting. We'll discuss that. But how to understand something is eternal but has an origin? Well, a very simple analogy is the moon. We're all aware that, of the moon's existence. No one thinks there's no moon. But nevertheless, it makes a fresh appearance each night. And there's a nice verse to this effect in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 3, verse number 8. And I'll quote here. Then the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, who is eternally situated in the core of everyone's heart, appeared from the heart of Devaki in the dense darkness of night, like the full moon rising on the eastern horizon, because Devaki was of the same category as Krishna. Unquote. So now how does the origin of the Holi festival fit into the pastimes of Lord Nrsingadev? Well, we described this nearly 2 years ago, so we'll just summarize it here. As we all know, in Satya Yuga, Hiranyakashipu was the king of demons, and he spent most of his time, terrorizing the devotees of the Lord. Unfortunately, or fortunately for him, his own son, Prahlad Maharaj, was the greatest of the Suras, or the devotees of the Lord. As a result, Hiranyakashipu tried to kill Prahlad Maharaj in so many ways. But being unsuccessful in every way that he tried, he finally turned to his sister. Hiranyakashipu had a sister, whose name was Holika, to help him kill Prahlad. Now, Holika had a blessing from Lord Brahma that she could never be burned by fire. This was the blessing of Brahma. She could never be burned by fire. So, as a last resort, Hiranyakashipu ordered his sister to kill Prahlad by sitting in the center of a huge bonfire with Prahlad on her lap, so the fire would devour him, not her. However, as we all know, Prahlad Maharaj survived the fire because he was fully protected by Krishna. Whereas Holika perished in the fire. How is that? The acharyas say that because her boon, her blessing from Lord Brahma, was annulled, it was cancelled, because of her offense to a pure devotee of the Lord, Prahlad Maharaj. That's how serious it is to blaspheme or criticize a devotee of the Lord. Her boon was just cancelled. She had, you could say, the greatest asset life can provide, the association of a saintly devotee. But instead of using it, she abused it. Sri Narayan Pandit says in Hitopadesh, verses 146 and 147, Shamshara Visha Vrikshasya Dve Rashavat Pale Yav Yamurita Rashavada Sa Gamasa Janai Shaha. This is the first verse. The poisonous tree of the material world yields only two succulent fruits, nectarian literature and saintly association. So beautiful. Then he says, Satsanga Keshava Bhaktir Gangam Bashi Nimarjanam Ashare Kalu Shamshara Trini Sharni Bhavayat. Quote, in this useless world, there are only three valuable things: saintly association, devotion to Krishna, and bathing in the Ganga. Yeah. So saintly association is so important. If we can take advantage of it, we can perfect our life. And if we abuse that association, if we're offensive to the saintly persons, our destination is the lower planets. So, ultimately, Holi is celebrated to commemorate the death of the evil Holika. Holi is, it's called Holi to commemorate the death of Holika. And also for Prahlad, to glorify his devotion and his faith in Lord Vishnu and Krishna. That's the higher principle. Holi is celebrated as a recognition of Prahlad's deep faith, one of the 12 Mahajans. So different reasons that we celebrate Holi. Now, as we mentioned in a previous lecture, the Brajabasis, they celebrate the Holi festival from Vashanta Panchami, the first day of spring. Actually, I'm speaking today on the first day of spring in Orissa, until a few days after Falguna Purnima. And during that particular period of which Holi is celebrated, Krishna and Balaram are given leave from cow herding. I thought that was really interesting when I read that. Krishna and Balaram are given leave. You don't have to herd the cows, just play Holi. Also, Holi is played on various days in various towns. For example, in Varshana, Holi, Varshana where Srimati Radharani lives, Holi is played on the 9th day from the full moon. Then Holi is played at Nandagram, where Krishna lives, on the 10th day of the full moon, from the full moon. And in Vrindavan proper, Holi is celebrated on the 11th to the 15th days from the full moon. Nice transcendental facts. And I was reading that during the Holi festival season, the children of Braja are allowed to play Holi in the forest every day, but they can only play in the towns and villages on scheduled days. Interesting. During the Holi festival season, the children of Braj, they're allowed to play Holi in any forest every day, but they could only play Holi in towns and villages on scheduled days. And that's when the adults join in the fun. So, one spring, the Brajabasis made plans for a particularly grand festival of Holi. And this, of course, meant it required lots of colored dyes and colored powders and colored liquids, etc. So the gopis started collecting all of this. So where did they get all this colored dye and colored liquids? You see the pictures, there's so much being thrown. Where did they get it all? It's very interesting. The Shastras describe they collected these items from three sources. From their parents, from Vrindadevi's storehouses. We spoke on that many months ago. She has storehouses around Braj for various purposes. And the third place they got all the paraphernalia for Holi was from the desire trees of Vrindavan. Wow. So as all of this was going on, the gopis were getting ready to play Holi. The cowherd boys, they had a meeting where they hatched a plan to attack the gopis with colors first. Now, their plan was that Madhu Mangal would very calmly approach the girls and ask for a sweet. They were used to that. Just kind of casually approach them and ask for a sweet, kind of to put them off guard. And when that time came, he walked up to them and said, "Dear girls, you are all Vaishyas, and you now have a very distinguished Brahmana in your midst. So you should all get very busy and prepare some sweets for me." Trying to put them off guard. They didn't know the boys were going to come. But Lalita interrupted him and said, "You rascal Madhu Mangal, we know what you boys are planning." And she turned to all the gopis and said, "Get him, girls." The boys had a different plan, but the girls, they had a better plan. "Get him, girls." So the girls, as we were discussing, they were ready and armed with, huge, it's described, huge pots of red and purple dyes, red and purple. So all these gopis, they ran forward and they poured those huge, it's described, huge vats of dye all over Madhu Mangal, the cowherd boy. And it was only with great difficulty that Madhu Mangal managed to call out, "Oh Krishna, save me! I have been captured. I am now blinded by fragrant powders and dyes, and I cannot escape from these shameless girls. Krishna, help!" So, Krishna was some distance away, but hearing him, Krishna turned to the cowherd boys, and he pointed in that direction, and he said, "Charge!" It's a famous pastime in Vrindavan. "Charge!" So the cowherd boys, with their own dyes and liquids and sprays and powders, started running towards the gopis. And it's described very, very soon there were two great armies facing each other. Thousands of cowherd boys and thousands of cowherd girls. And with the sounds of bugles and horns, sounding, bugles and horns were sounded, both sides started shooting dyes with their syringes and throwing colored powders. It's mentioned that streams of colored liquids filled the air, coloring the land, the sky, and the waters of Braj. And then there's a fine line there, as well as all the gopas and the gopis too. Everything got covered. And after everyone had used all their liquid dyes, because they started with these syringes, you see sometimes in the Pichwai paintings from Rajasthan, there's syringes. At that point, Plan B came in. They started throwing this powdered dye, which we mentioned the other day is a fragrance, actually. Each dye has a particular color, the real Holi, the original Holi. So it's mentioned that very soon everyone had created this huge cloud of colored dust that blocked the rays of the sun, similar to a pastime we told in our last lecture. And as a result, everyone got confused and started throwing the powders not only on the enemy, but also on their friends, so much they couldn't see. So, inflicting the powders on their friends. Friendly fire, we call that in the military. So, what happened is that it's such a joyful, loving pastime that everyone got intoxicated by the bliss. And they began calling out, as we hear in Holi in Vrindavan. I've been on there on a number of occasions. You hear the people, they call out, ho, ho, holy, ho, ho, holy. And finally, in the midst of this transcendental chaos, Madhu Mongol stood up. And he said, Krishna, your Vamsi, your Vamsi, your flute, your flute. So although Krishna couldn't see even an inch in front of him, he managed to pull his flute out from his belt, where he keeps it, and place it to his lips. And as soon as he blew into it, this huge cloud of powders settled, and everyone could see each other. And Krishna said, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Now, that's fine. But by clearing the air, he made himself an open target for Sri Radha. So she signaled to the gopis, and she said, girls, surround him, get him. Girls, surround him, get him. So suddenly, all those thousands, actually I was reading tens of thousands of gopis, surrounded Krishna and covered him from head to foot with streams of sandalwood scented water and a variety of colors. Streams of sandalwood scented water and a variety of colors. So the acharyas describe that this battle between the gopas and the gopis, between the cowherd boys and the girls, they described it as a fierce exchange of love and a colorful way to show affection and receive affection. Because Vrindavan's all about love. There's some complicated pastimes and there's intrigue, but it's all meant to accent the loving exchanges between the devotees and Radha and Krishna and the devotees. Love reigns supreme in Vrindavan, in the spiritual world. So after enjoying in this way for some time, the gopas and the gopis headed to different parts of the Jamuna to bathe. And as they did so, the dye from their bodies swirled in assorted colors in Jamuna's waters, making it look like a moving rainbow. This is a detail I think we mentioned in another lecture as well. It was so beautiful. As they were taking bath, the dye from their bodies swirled in assorted colors in Yamuna's waters, making it look like a moving rainbow. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki. And on yet another occasion, while playing Holi during spring, the gopis on one side were evenly matched by gopas on the other. Again, it's kind of a battle. They line up like that. And they were pretty, the number was pretty equal. And as a result, it's mentioned, neither side could gain a decisive victory over their opponents. And eventually, Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani, she became fatigued from overexertion. And she sat down on a golden throne. And it's written that soon after a breathless Krishna soon joined her, and together they rooted for their respective followers. They're sitting on this golden throne, right? And Krishna's rooting for the boys, and Radha's cheering on the girls. So that really inspired the gopas and the gopis, and they, really got into throwing big balls of red powder. It's mentioned that either exploded on their targets or burst in the air before getting there. And as a result, all this colored dye, it settled on the trees and the vines and the grass, as well as on the faces and the limbs and the clothes of all the combatants. That's how it's described. And Madhavangal, that funny little cowherd boy, he would run to the front lines and incite the girls by dancing around. And when the gopis charged, throwing these balls of powder or squirting liquid color, he would retreat to hide behind the boys. Fun and games, but on the transcendental platform. The playground of God. Vrindavan is the playground of God. So it's described. It's described that most of the children threw colors, but some played instruments. It's described like that. Most of the children threw colors, but some played instruments, and others sang. So in your mind's eye, you can see this big battle going on. Some boys and some girls are, egging it on by, playing instruments or singing. And I was also reading that excited birds, like the peacocks and the cuckoos, they would then add their calls to the music, while circling above the battlefield, intoxicated by the fun. So interesting. So eventually, some gopis decided to play a trick on Radha and Krishna. And they're sitting on the throne, right? So these cowherd boys and cowherd girls, actually the cowherd gopis, sorry, I don't know, no boys. Some of the gopis decided to play a trick on Radha and Krishna. And approaching them from behind, the girls tied the divine couple's outer garments together, like in a knot. And then from the front, both the boys and the girls suddenly attacked the divine couple, dousing them so completely with colored powders that the acharyas say they looked like two vermilion Hanuman deities. Hanuman's covered with that. They put a dye on him, actually, an orange dye on him. The murtis here, the deities. So this was a vermilion color. So the divine couple had so much of this powder on, they looked like two vermilion Hanuman deities. So naturally, Radha and Krishna, they tried to escape this surprise attack, but when they tried to flee, they were restrained by the knot. Their cloth was tied together in a knot. Thus, they couldn't avoid being pelted by the colorful dyes of holy. And it's mentioned, humiliated, they ran together for shelter in a particular kunj, in a particular grove. And there, Krishna was able to use, it's described, the pointed end of his syringe to untie the knot. So then both he and Srimati Radharani, they returned to the golden throne they were previously sitting on. And as they did so, the whole holy battle, it subsided. And then once again, this time with the divine couple's acknowledgement, their clothes were knotted again, a playful pastime, as the cowherd boys and girls sang wedding songs to them. It's a play pastime. And Radha and Krishna, they got a little embarrassed. They actually got flustered by these new developments. So they rose from their places, but were unable to part ways. They wanted to be together. So once the fun had subsided, Radha and Krishna spent some time together. And once all the fun had subsided, Krishna sent the boys home. And he and the gopis, they bathed in a nearby lake called Gulal Kunda. It means the lake of colored dye. They bathed there in the lake of colored dye, and which washed the color from their transcendental bodies, from Radha and Krishna. And then again they were dressed in fresh clothes and ornaments. And I was reading that it said that even today, sometimes during the spring season, colored dyes become visible in the waters of the Jamuna there, where there's a lake connected to the Jamuna. Colored dyes become visible in that lake attached to the Jamuna. and one can hear sounds of unseen children playing holy. This permeates the air. You can hear the children playing, and sometimes you can look around, and the trees are dusted with colored powders. So one day we can all go to Gulal Kund, the lake of colored dye, where the divine couple Radha and Krishna bathed and then dressed, and maybe we'll be fortunate during the spring season to see the colored dyes become visible in the waters of that lake, and we can hear the sounds of unseen children playing holy. That sound will permeate the air. We'll look around, and the trees will be dusted with colored powder. It's all possible by Prabhupada's mercy. Just like Krishna said to Arjuna, now I give you divine eyes by which you can see this universal form. So our progress in Krishna consciousness, our residence in Vrindavan, our ability to one day see the divine couple, to see Krishna Balaram, to see the original Kalpavriksha trees, the Jamuna, Giriraj, that will come from Krishna's representative, Srila Prabhupada. So we can pray to him like that we can one day see this eternal festival of holy being played in eternal Vrindavan. Jai. So I think we have enough material for maybe 2 more classes on spring. So sweet. Thank you so much for this opportunity. We'll be back in a couple of days. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shyam ki, Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radharani ki, Shri Mayapur Dham ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Jagannath Puri Dham ki, I'm close to Jagannath Puri Dham now, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yajna ki, Gaura Premanandi, Jai Jai Sisi Radhe Shyam. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back again to our ongoing series on the glory of our beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Vishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we are continuing with the spring pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. And today I would like to begin, actually finishing the series, with a description of the various ways in which the Brajabasis celebrate Holi to this very day. In Vrindavan, it is said that, quote, if someone plays Holi in Vrindavan, Radha and Krishna will fill their life with the joy of love and the colors of devotion. So in our last few lectures, we discussed the traditional way of observing Holi, which is throwing colored powders and squirting liquid dyes. Now, in olden times, meaning going back, several hundred years, the Brajabasis used to use various pure substances to make the dyes for the powders and the liquids they used to play Holi. And I found the ingredients in the Vrindavan Research Institute. They used saffron, called keshar. They used a white scented powder known as choba, and a black powder called Gaza, and it said that that powder can make one blind with love and the ingredients. And of course, they use sandalwood paste, chandan. They use vermilion in the ingredients, and it's kumkuma, and a pink colored powder called gulal, Gulal, as well as colored water made out of boiling the spring flower called teshu. This flower only grows in spring. So they would boil that in water and use the essence of that water in the substances. And I read that that teshu flower is a flower very dear to Kamadev. But because obviously these items are expensive these days, nowadays the Brajabasis play holy just with the pink colored substance called gulal. That we mentioned that one substance in the list there, gulal, and gulal's made out of dry roses mixed with rice wheat and various perfumes. So there's the ingredients in the past and in the present. But aside from the method of throwing colored powders and dyes in syringes during Holi, there are four other prominent ways the Brajabasis in Vrindavan observe this festival of colors. Holi translates into a festival of colors. And each of these four particular ways happen just once during Vrindavan spring and in separate places, four different places. Now, these methods of observing Holi are all part of the Vrindavan culture, but I couldn't find any Shastric reference for how they all started or evolved through time. And even if Radha and Krishna played these kind of holies, but they're certainly an integral part of Vrindavan today. And when you're in Vrindavan during Holi, you see the Brajabasis play these types of Holi. So I'll mention them so you can understand them if you're ever in Vrindavan in springtime. So the first is called Latamar Holi, in which the ladies playfully strike their elder brother-in-laws with wooden sticks. I've seen this many times. It takes place in Varshana. And the second Holi is called Ladumar Holi, in which the cowherd boys and the gopis, they throw ladus at each other. I've also seen that. The first time I thought, wait, what about all those ladus? They throw ladus at each other. And this also takes place in Varshana. And a third type of Holi is played in Gokul, and it's called Chadimar Holi. Chadimar Holi, in which mothers playfully touch their sons with small thin sticks. And the fourth type of Holi is called Kuranga, and it's played in the village of Dauji. And there's a beautiful deity of Balaram in that village, big deity of Balaram. And the village is named after him. The village is called Dauji. And in this celebration, sisters-in-laws playfully attack their younger brother-in-laws with wet shotters. It's a riot. I've seen it. They have these wet shotters after their younger brother-in-laws. Yes, so these are four other ways that the Vasis play Holi. So officially, Holi starts 31 days after.
Govinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Dhira Damodara Swami Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Vatsala Sri Gaurahari Vajabhakata Vatsala Sri Gaurahari Sri Gaurahari Sahi Goshta Bihari Nanda Jasomati Chitahari Dhira Damodara Ishaye Kana Bhova Mandire Basi Karaha Bojana Nandirani Deshi Bashi Giri Baradari Baladeva Saha Soka Vaise Sari Sari Shukta Shakhari Vaji Lalita Kushmanda Dalidana Dugda Tumi Dadi Mocha Kanda Dabora Mash Boda Rotika Britana Saskuli Pistaka Kir Kuli Payasana Kapura Amrita Keli Ramba Kirashara Amrita Rasalanga Dvadasha Pakora Luci Sinisar Puri Ladura Sabali Bhojana Korena Krishna Hoye Kutuhali Radhikara Pakayana Bibida Byanjana Paramayanande Krishna Korena Bhojana Chale Bale Ladu Khai Sri Madhu Mangala Bagala Bajaya Deya Hari Bolo Radhikari Gani Hari Nayane Rakone Tripta Hoye Kai Krishna Jasoda Bhavani Bhujanande Priya Krishna Subhasita Bari Sabe Mukha Prakaloy Kore Sari Sari Asta Mukha Prakaliya Jata Sakagane Anande Vishrama Kore Baladeva Sane masala ne tambula masala tahake Krishna Chandra sukhe nidagela Vishalaka Shiki Pucha Chamara Dulaya Apurva Sayaya Krishna Sukhe Nirayaya Yasomati Anga Priye Danishtaya Nito Shri Krishna Prasad Radha Unje Hoye Prito Lalitari Saki Gana Avashesha Paya Mane Mane Sukhe Radha Krishna Guna Gaya Hari Lila Ekamatra Jahara Pamoda Bharati Gai Thakur Bhakti Vinoda Bhakata Vatsala Sri Gaura Hari Bhakata Vatsala Sri Gaura Hari Sri Gaura Hari Sahi Gosta Bihari Sri Gaura Hari Sahi Gosta Bihari Nanda Dasomati Chita Hari Nanda Dasomati